All right, picking up on our 14-point listing presentation, yesterday we went deep into the needs analysis and prioritizing their needs. And the next step after that is satisfy their needs. In other words, that is your strategy that you are going to use in order to get their home sold. What do you do that is part of your unique value proposition? How are you going to market their property? Why should they hire you? What are the services that you're going to provide? For example, do you have a strategy for calling to get feedback on every showing and then communicating that with the seller? Do you have a weekly check-in call in which you're going to call them and just give them activity that you've had in the last week on their property? Even if there's been no showings, you still have a weekly check-in call. All of that is part of satisfying their needs. And the next step that we're going to get into today is pricing strategy to get their home sold. I'm going to go back to the example that I was using with Sarah yesterday. So it's the pricing strategy that we can use in order to have Sarah sitting at the closing table within 60 days so that she can move to Atlanta in a new home that she's already purchased, and she can move there with her family. So I'm going to share my screen. Wish me luck. Let's see how this works. How are we doing? Can everybody see price to sell versus for sale? Can somebody give me a thumbs up in the air? Cool. Let's hit presentation. Oh, wow. Doing really good. All right. Pricing to sell versus for sale. So what we're going to do is the subject property is 2,400 living space. That's 2,400 square foot under air. So the garage wouldn't count, the lanai wouldn't count. We're talking about living space. There's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. You have a 400 square foot garage. The home was built in 2002, has an updated kitchen, updated baths, and new impact windows. And it's on a 1/4 acre lot, has a pool, and backs to a lake. So the way I would present this is starting with comparable property number 1, and I'm just going to pick somebody on my screen, and I'll go with Diane. So Diane, the first comparable that we're going to look at is a property in your neighborhood. It sold for $475,000. There's 2,000. Ignore the adjusted price for now, guys. I'll come back to that. There's 2,300 living square feet, so it's a little bit smaller than yours. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths with a 400 square foot. So that's comparable. It was built in 2004, so it's a little bit newer. Has an updated kitchen and baths, so a little less updated than your property. Sits on a 1/4 acre lot, just like yours. It has a pool, just like yours, and it backs to a lake. So what we would do here is we would add $20,000 to this property because it's actually 100 square foot smaller. I think I said larger a moment ago. It's smaller. So we're going to add to the comparable property because the comparable property is 100 square foot smaller. And the way I came up with $20,000 is I just averaged out the price per square foot based on a sale price of $475,000 and 2,300 square foot of living space. There is also fewer updates. So we're going to add $5,000 to the subject property. We've added $25,000, which gives us an adjusted sale price of $500,000. All right, that's comparable 1. Comparable 2 sold for $495,000 in July. So that is a little bit old as far as comparables are concerned. It was 5 months ago, and we definitely know the market has been changing. So we're going to take away $5,000 from this sale price because the comparable is 5 months old. It has 2,500 living space. So it's actually larger. So we're going to subtract $20,000 from this comparable property. It's 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, 400 square foot garage. Has an extra bedroom. So we're also going to subtract $5,000 from this sale price because it has 4 bedrooms and not 3 bedrooms. It was built in 1998, so it's 4 years older. We're going to add $5,000 to the subject to the comparable property. Has an updated kitchen, baths, new impact windows, just like yours. 1/4 acre lot, pool, backs to a lake. All of that is just like yours. So the adjusted sale price on this property would be $470,000. Now, off script, we're going to come back and go through these again, and I'm going to break it down further and answer questions. So if you're thinking, John, you're going too fast, we have questions, don't worry, we're going to come back to that. All right, comparable property number 3 sold for $455,000 in November. So that's a time-wise great comparable property, sold pretty much the same time period that we're looking at for your home. There's 2,200 living space square foot. So we're going to add $40,000 to this property because it's actually 200 square foot smaller. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths with a 400 square foot garage, just like yours, built in 2004, relatively the same as yours, has an updated kitchen, baths, and new impact windows, quarter-acre lot, pool, backs to a lake. So we're adding $40,000 to the sale price of this property. That gives us an adjusted sale price of $495,000. Now, if we average out 3 comparables that we're looking at, adjusted sale price for comparable property number 1 is $500,000. Comparable property number 2 is $470,000. Comparable property $495,000. 3 is $495,000. We add all of these up together, we divide it by 3, and we come up with an adjusted sale price of $488,333. Now, remember, the purpose of looking at comparables is not to determine the value of the property. The purpose of doing this is to determine the right strategy in order to get their home sold. For example, if we had a 2-month supply of inventory, we could probably price the property a little bit higher than the adjusted sale price comparable suggests that we should price the property. An appraiser might come up with $488,333, but we're going to go a little bit higher because there's less than 60-day supply of inventory. Now, if there's 5-month supply of inventory, we got a lot more competition. We might actually bring the price down to $475 versus $488. And I'm going to go to supply and demand in just a moment. But one of the things I want you to think about here is at $490,000, that puts us in a price range of $475 to $500. But at $475,000, we're actually picking up those buyers. We're looking $450 to $475. We would not attract those same buyers if we price the property at $490, even $488, even $476. We're still not attracting those buyers that are $450 to $475. And with 5 months supply, that's probably the right strategy to get this home sold. Now, the next thing that we're going to look at is we're going to look at supply and demand. And let me move your pictures around because it's in the way I can't see. All right, supply and demand. We've got 2 different price categories that we're going to look at here. We're going to look at 500 to 525, and then we're going to look at 475 to 500,000. Now, the reason I'm looking at 500 to 525, guys, I'm off script, I'm talking to you. The reason I'm looking at 500 to 525,000 is because I know that there's a really good possibility that they're thinking the right price for their home is somewhere between 5 and 525. Because I know that, I want to show them what that looks like. Now, back on script, between 500 and 525,000, we have 12 active listings. Those are 12 properties that we would be competing against in order to get your home sold. There was 18 sold in the last 6 months, which means we have 3 selling every 30 days. And in order to get your home sold, we'd have to be one of the top 3 properties competing with 12 properties that are currently for sale. So we have to be the top 3 out of 12. We have a 4-month supply of inventory. Now, 475 to 500,000, there's also 12 active listings. And there's been 24 sold in the last 6 months. So we have 4 selling every 30 days and a 3-month supply of inventory. In order to get your home sold between 475 and 500,000, we have to be one of the top 4 out of 12. So the question is, now I need somebody to role play with me. Diane, I'm coming to you because I know you're ready, willing, and able to jump in here. So the question, Diane, is do we have a better chance of selling your home between 500 and 525, or do we have a better chance of selling your home between 475 and 500? A better chance to get it sold in the next 45 to 60 days, which is your goal, which means do we have a better chance of being one of the top 4 properties out of 12 between 475 and 500? Do we have a better chance of beating the competition between 475 and 500, or do we have a better chance of beating the competition in order to be one of the top 3 properties that are going to sell in the next 30 days between 500 and 525?
I mean, my first 475 to 500.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. So
But
where do you think we need to be in order to get your home sold so you could be sitting at the closing table within 60 days so that you can move to Atlanta with your family in your new home?
I think if I'm looking at the 475 to 500 range, I'd say 475.
It's possible. So
But I have to go through all those numbers. It's, you know, I think in today's market, it's so different. And can I just add something that I just recently did on a supply and demand, John?
yeah,
I've been doing 90 days close because the prices, like, even it's November now or December, right? But
Mhm.
like in September and October, a lot of these homes were still getting sale prices, let's say from spring, because, you know, some of the closings were delayed. So I've been doing 90-day for the supply and demand for that reason, because 6 months back now, we're still getting those high numbers, or I don't know. I just thought I'd share that. That's what I've been doing
Yeah, and
versus
that's
6
fine as
months.
long as you get enough, as long as you get enough data. My biggest
Of
concern is
course.
going back 90 days, and I should point out, guys, and I'm sorry I didn't. When we're looking at supply and demand, pick the subject property. That's a X right in the middle of a big circle. And you're going to 2 to 3 mile range outside the subject property. Because remember, buyers are not only looking in that subdivision, they're looking outside that subdivision as well. So the seller, you need to help the seller understand that their competition is not just the homes in their neighborhood or not even the immediate area. It's a 2 to 3 mile radius most of the time. And Diane, as long as you're getting enough data, in other words, if you pull the last 90 days and you're getting 10 properties that sold, that's not enough data. Okay, that's one of the reasons why I would go back 12 months or 6 months. Remember, this is just to pull numbers in order to figure out the right strategy. It has nothing to do with the price of the home. The conversation right now is 475 to 500 or 500 to 525. And I asked a bad question and you answered based on the wrong question. The question that I would ask you here, Diane, is which one of these price ranges is the right strategy in order to get your home sold within the next 60 days so you could be in Atlanta with your family?
Definitely the 475 to 500.
Okay.
If I want to get it sold in the next 60 days.
Okay. Now let's take a look at this and let's get the right price. Okay. If there are 4 selling every 30 days and there are 12 properties that are currently for sale, we want to be one of the top 4 properties that are going to sell in the next 30 days. In other words, where do we need to be in order to beat the competition? And what I have found when we have a market that's becoming more and more competitive is we need to be top 3rd in condition. In other words, we need to be able to beat these other 12 properties that are for sale when it comes to the condition of your home, the updates, the amenities, everything that the home has to offer. We need to be top 3rd. The other thing we need to look at is we need to be bottom 3rd in price in order to beat the competition. So what I would do is I would look at these 12 properties that are currently for sale and I would ask, where do I need to be price-wise to be in the bottom 3rd? The first question would be, based on what we know about your home, is it top 3rd in condition, amenities, and updates, location as well? Is it top third? And if it's not, by the way, guys, off script, if it's not, then that price has to drop even further in order to beat the competition. In other words, if you price this property at $490,000 and it's not top third in condition, one of the top properties in the top third when it comes to the condition of the property, and we price it at 490, is it going to be one of the 3 homes or one of the 4 homes that sells in the next 30 days? And the answer is clearly no. Now, if it is top third, it still doesn't mean that we can price this property at 490 or 495. We need to be extremely competitive on price. Now, remember, the subject property price adjusted for this property said $488,333. You know, that's what an appraiser would price it at. And we're going to put it somewhere between $475,000 and $500,000, even though 3-month supply is considered a seller's market. 3-month supply, remember, I'm going to give you 2 different numbers here. 3-month supply also means that there's 18 properties for sale and 6 are selling every 30 days. So where do we need to be in order to be one of the top 6? And more than likely, we need to be somewhere between $475,000 and $480,000. Because if we're in 3-month supply of inventory today, where are we going to be 30 days from now? Is it still going to be 3 months or could it be 4 months? And where is it going to be 60 days from now, 90 days from now? And if we price above the market, what ends up happening is we're chasing the market down. So you can either create the market or you can chase the market. And the people who sell are going to be the ones who create the market. All right, I'm going to stop share. We can come back to this. I just want to be able to look at you and talk to me. What questions do you have? Did this make sense? Are you following something similar to this, or are you doing something different? And the reason I want you to share is because there might be somebody else on this call that can learn from what you're doing. Or maybe you have a question they also have, but they don't want to raise their hand and ask the question. So please ask so that not only you are getting your question asked, but so are they. All right, raise your hands, guys. Talk to me. Sarah.
So I'm going to say I do something a little bit differently, but I really like what you did here because the market that we're in, and again, buyers are always looking in an area. And this is not to establish the value of the home. That's what the appraisal is for.
Mhm.
Because typically when you're doing something to establish value, you're only going in the neighborhood or within that same subdivision,
Correct.
right?
Right, correct.
As opposed to what you just did, going 2 to 3 miles out because buyers are looking in that area and clearly explaining the difference that what we're doing is buyers are looking in the area and putting this strategy. I would probably, instead of a slide, I would have this up on an Excel spreadsheet where I could clearly outline one to be the 500 to 525 and the other side to be the 400 to 4, you know, the second of the scenarios, because we're going to give them a range. But I really like this going out and doing this. The only thing that I add to this is once they pick a range, I already have pre-created an Excel spreadsheet that I call a seller net sheet. And it's an estimated net once they go through all of their expenses. And the commission is already in there. And I always ask them to pick which, there's a low, medium, and a high. And I always ask them to pick which outcome they would prefer. And they always go for the one in the middle, which is the mid-range. And there's no conversations later about commission because you've just picked this middle range, which you've picked everything in this, which includes the full commission on the buyer and the seller side, including, you know, their doc stamp costs, their lien search, their including the what do you call it, the transaction management, all of the fee, everything. And then I ask about their mortgage and take their mortgage out of there. So they're going to clearly see an estimate of what they will end up with once everything is said and done.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. That was a lot and great information as well, by the way. That's what I was looking for. So still speaking with you, Sarah, and with everybody else too, of course. The PowerPoint slide was just for you guys. I don't use this on a listing appointment. Remember, I have very few vigils. I am bringing these comparable properties on paper. I'm actually going through them one at a time. Now I've marked them up ahead of time so that we're making adjustments plus or minus. We're coming up with an adjusted sale price. With supply and demand, I create that on the MLS. It's easy to do. And I'm not using PowerPoint slides. Now, Sarah, one more thing. I love the net sheet idea, okay? And just a thought. Would you ever, well, I guess just would you ever not go through a net sheet with them before they pick the right price to get their home sold? Is it possible that, would you ever show them that net sheet after they said, here's where we need to be? Or you've said, based on supply and demand, I believe this is where we need to be in order to be one of the top 4 properties that sell in the next 3 months. I think we need to be at 480,000. What do you think? And the seller says, I agree. Now, I don't want them picking a price based on how much money they want in net. That's my point.
Well, the net sheet is after we have agreed on the price.
There we go. Okay.
Right, so that they could see after we have agreed on the price, then one of the biggest purposes the net sheet supplies is the commission objection or the question or no, I'm not, because we've picked a price and I'm showing you and the sellers now can see, hey, this is my estimated net, and there's no argument about any of the costs. And then the other reason the net sheet is so important is because once we get under contract, if now we have to negotiate, and let's say we were able to get more than their price, or we have to negotiate anything, we always come back to the net sheet to say, okay, if we make a price adjustment, if we agree to this, if we agree to this negotiation, then this is how it's going to affect your bottom line, right? And sometimes people get wigged out over, hey, I've got to negotiate for $5,000. But when you show them, when we bring them back to the net sheet, because we've been talking about it from the beginning, it's a familiar tool to them, and they're like, oh, this isn't bad. Yeah, I'm still pretty close to what I wanted to, what I wanted, what I needed anyway, or what I wanted. So it's a tool, not just at the listing appointment, but it's a tool to keep everybody centered 100%. in a very quick way. But and I know that you don't use the PowerPoint slides at the present, but because I want to keep that myth out of people's heads that the listing presentation is about PowerPoint slides. So that's why I made that comment.
Yeah, no, that was just for you guys. Thank you, Sarah. You're amazing. And I agree with everything you said, by the way. Always use a net sheet. You 100%. You absolutely don't want to wait until you've got an offer on their home and then have them ask you, well, what do I net if I accept this offer? You should have done that at the listing table. Great. Absolutely true every single time. Kina, I'm coming to you next, but first there's a question in the chat. Shania, the answer to your question is yes. $5,000 as a plus or minus for an additional bedroom is pretty much the rule of thumb that I follow, but ask an appraiser. Ask other real estate agents that have sold homes that you're in the same office with, and ask them, what do they normally see in an appraisal as far as adjustments for an additional bedroom or adjustments for fewer bedrooms? And Kina, coming to you.
Hey, John, I'm wondering, can you go over the scripting, which is really important, that I find into strategic pricing as opposed to the value, because I think sometimes when we do the CMA, the client may think that this is what we're saying that their value is. So can you just repeat that again, please?
Okay. I'm sorry. Sure. I got distracted by something in the chat.
Oh, it's okay.
Paraphrase your question for me.
So just if you can script over how to say that this is strategic pricing as opposed to, the value of your home. That's not what we're doing. You made a point, which is very interesting and clear, because sometimes sellers get, well, that's not how much my home is worth, and making that distinction, I was never able to do. So in regards to strategic pricing, the difference between the two.
You bet, 100%. So our goal here, Tina, is to create the right strategy in order to get your home sold. It is not to determine the value of your home. It's to determine the right strategy in order to get your home sold. Now, even though I don't use PowerPoints, I'm big on visuals. And what I would typically do, Zig Ziglar used to call it a thinking pad. I have a notebook with me and I'm drawing pictures. In other words, if the market says that the value of your home is $488,000, and if prices are starting to stabilize, or they're even starting to creep down just a little bit, your home may be worth $488,000, but that may not be the right strategy in order to be one of the four that are going to sell out of 12 in the next 30 days. Remember, the goal here is to get your home sold within 30 days. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's just the next 30 days, but at some point you have to be one of the top 4 properties out of 12 that are available. In 30 days from now, it might not be 12 that are available, it might be 16. So now you have to be one of the top 4 properties that are selling out of 16. Your competition is more, it's not less. And maybe 90 days from now, it's 18 properties that are for sale. And now you have to be one of the top 4 out of 18 properties that are for sale. My concern for you is not that you're going to get less money for your home than you thought. My concern for you is that we're going to be talking in 90 days from now, your home hasn't sold and it's even less money then. If you sold your home for $480,000 in the next 30 days, and the appraised value is $488,000, you sold your home for $8,000 less than what it's worth. Yes. And if 90 days from now, the value is $470,000, did you give your home away? Tina, was that what you were looking for?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you got it, girl. Angel, talk to me. You're on mute. You're still on mute. There you go.
Is that better?
Yes. You're awesome.
So we have been in a crazy market for a while. We're settling down, and I can't recall the 0 to 3 months or 4 to 6. So can we go over that? Is the seller's market 0 to 3, balanced 4 to 6, buyers 7 through whatever?
Yeah. According to the National Association of Realtors, you're absolutely correct. 0 to 3 is considered a seller's market. 3 to 6 is considered stable, and anything more than 6 is a buyer's market. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. I believe that 0 to 3 months is definitely a seller's market. And I believe anything over 3 months, I'm pricing as if we're in a buyer's market.
Okay.
Here's the reason why, because it may be a 3-month supply of inventory today, but if there are fewer homes selling, which there are, And remember, the prediction for 2023 is 3.6 million homes sold compared to 6.2 million in 2021. So the market's changing, okay? Now, no fear there. Remember, people are always buying and selling. So I'm not saying that you should be concerned, because you shouldn't. This is a skill-based market. Go get it. Now, if it's more than 3 months, Angel, I am looking at this as if we're in a buyer's market, meaning we're going to get really aggressive on pricing in order to get your home sold in the next 30 days. Because it might be 3 months of inventory or 4 months of inventory right now, and a month from now it might be 5 months of inventory. 3 months from now it might be 6 months of inventory.
Okay. And last question tied with that is what I'm hearing is, tell me if I'm wrong or if you know different numbers, but what I'm hearing is when you're at a balanced market, it's super normal to not get an offer for like 3 weeks or so. Like that is a normal, like that's what we should be telling people is, you know, this is normal to not get an offer in 3 weeks, and then we should drop a price maybe in 4 weeks. Is that, am I on track there? That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. 3 months, I don't know. 6 months, 100%. The conversation changes. I've had conversations with hundreds or thousands of sellers, and part of the conversation was, we can do 2 things. It's been 30 days and we haven't gotten an offer. We can do 2 things. We can either make a price improvement, or we can just be patient and wait for the right offer to come in. Because guys, when you get to a 6-month supply of inventory, you've got 18 properties for sale, 3 are selling every 30 days. All right. Now there's still going to be 3 properties sold. So Angel, that listing could be one of the 3. What's the one thing that we can do in order to give that seller the best chance of being one of the top 3 properties that are sold in the next 30 days?
I think price is number 1.
That's it. That's it. It's price. Right. 30 days from now, if it hasn't sold, it's overpriced.
Okay.
Now, 3 months of inventory might be a different story.
I don't think I've been in a strong buyer's market yet. I've only been in the business like, I think, well, I want to say 6 years. So I've been in balanced. I've been in this extreme crazy sellers, and I don't think I've been in the buyers, and I'm kind of thinking that's where we're headed. So.
Well, what you're going to find, first of all, that balanced market is very short period of time. If you go back and look at what happened between 2006 and 2008, that was a very similar market as the one we're in today. In other words, in 2005, that market was very similar. In 2004, it was 2004 and 2005 were very similar to 2020 and 2021. Very similar. All right. I was selling real estate in that market. I know what I'm talking about. All right. And then all of a sudden, just like that, it was April of 2006 in the Tampa Bay area anyways, we started to see the number of homes selling drastically fall. All right. Doesn't mean that the market immediately changed to a buyer's market. It took time. It took a period of time to go from less than 3 months to more than 6 months, but it didn't take as long as most people think. It took about 3 months. And we were there. The other thing I would tell you is you're going to find that there's 2 markets right now. All right. There's a buyer's market and there's a seller's market. It depends on price, depends on location. You could have less than 3 months of inventory for a single family home in a subdivision, for example, priced between $500,000 and $550,000. Now go out to the beach and look at properties that are priced from $1 million to $1,250,000 waterfront, not necessarily on the waterfront, but in a waterfront community, for example. And I'm just picking that as an example. Water has nothing to do with this conversation. All right. You could have $1 million to $1,250,000, 6 months of inventory. Within a mile of that, you could have single family home priced from $500,000 to $550,000, less than 3 months of inventory. So within a mile, you got a buyer's market and a seller's market.
Okay.
That's why it's important to always do a supply and demand analysis, because that's what's going to tell you buyer's market, seller's market. It's also going to tell you what's the right strategy in order to get this property sold.
Okay. Okay,
All right.
thanks.
All right, guys, I hope you got great value today. This is recorded. Oh, I got another hand up. Sarah, did you put your hand back up? It went up and down.
I did. I put my hand up really quickly. Hey,
Yes.
in the chat, I dropped that the Excel spreadsheets that I use for the seller net sheets. And one is for Broward County, one is for Miami-Dade. And the reason is the doc stamp fees are different in Miami-Dade and Broward. In the chat, you only have to change 3 things: the price, the prorated property tax, and the seller's mortgage. Everything else is formula driven based on those 3 pieces of data.
Extremely valuable. Thank you for doing that, guys. That's huge value. By the way, Miami-Dade is the only county in the state of Florida that has a different doc stamp. It's 60 cents on every $100. The rest of the state is 70 cents on every $100. Interesting. All right. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. Extremely
Thank
valuable.
you.
All right, guys, I hope you got great value today. If you did, please share the link with a friend so that we can continue to grow the group. Remember that I am working as a coach. So if you are looking, or you know of anybody who's looking for someone to help them, to coach them in order to break through ceilings and take their business to the next level, send me a text or send me an email. Okay. And as always, make it a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Make it a great day. Thanks, John.
Absolutely.
day.
Thank you.